The distress beacon pulsed outward into the void, a tiny electronic heartbeat lost in the enormity of unclaimed space. Aboard the research vessel Quiet Dawn, 6 Mirity scientists watched their failing engines with growing despair. They had come to study the death of a star, to gather data that might save millions of lives across a dozen worlds. Now they drifted helplessly, their ship crippled by a cascade failure that no amount of emergency repairs could fix. Captain Soral pressed her four-fingered hand against the cold viewport and calculated the odds of rescue. The nearest Mirati outpost was 11 days away at maximum speed. Their backup systems would last perhaps 3. She had sent the distress call on all frequencies, following standard protocol, but she held little hope. This region of space was empty, unmapped, and far from any major shipping lanes. Her communications officer, a young male named Tevin, looked up from his console with confusion in his large amber eyes. His voice trembled slightly when he spoke. Something is coming. Multiple contacts. They will arrive in approximately 2 hours. Soral felt ice form in her stomach. No rescue vessel could respond that quickly. No civilian ship traveled this region. The only explanation was that someone had been nearby, waiting, listening for exactly this kind of signal. Pirates. Or worse, the Mirati had no military. They were scientists, healers, researchers. Their species had devoted itself to the pursuit of knowledge and the betterment of galactic civilization. They had no weapons, no defenses, no way to fight back against those who saw their vulnerability as an invitation. Soral gathered her crew in the central chamber and told them the truth. Help was not coming. Predators were. She asked if anyone wanted to record final messages for their families. 3 of them did. The other 2 simply held hands and waited in silence. When the sensors finally resolved the approaching vessels, Tevin made a sound that Soral had never heard from him before. It was somewhere between terror and disbelief. 17 ships. 17 warships. The smallest was 3 times the size of the Quiet Dawn. The largest was a mountain of metal and weapons that defied comprehension. Soral stared at the display and felt her mind struggle to process what she was seeing. These were not pirate vessels. Pirates operated in small groups with fast ships designed for quick strikes and faster escapes. This was a battle fleet. This was an armada built for conquest and destruction. The communication system crackled with an incoming transmission. The language was unfamiliar at first, rough and direct, but the universal translator caught up within seconds. This is the United Earth Navy responding to your distress signal. Identify yourself and the nature of your emergency. Soral had heard of humans. Every species in the galaxy had heard whispers about the newcomers from a small blue world on the edge of explored space. They were said to be persistent, aggressive, territorial. They were said to fight wars with a brutality that shocked even the most hardened military species. They were said to be dangerous, but they had never harmed the Mirati. They had never even made contact with her people. She activated the communication channel with shaking hands. This is Captain Soral of the Mirati research vessel Quiet Dawn. We have suffered catastrophic engine failure. We have no weapons and no hostile intent. We are scientists conducting medical research. Please, we mean no threat to you. The response came quickly, and the voice on the other end sounded almost confused. Captain Soral, you sent a distress call. We are here to help. Our engineering teams are preparing to board your vessel and assess the damage. Our medical staff is standing by if any of your crew requires assistance. Please lower your shields and prepare to receive us. Soral looked at Tevin. Tevin looked back at her. We do not have shields, she transmitted. We have no defensive systems of any kind. There was a pause. When the human voice returned, it carried something that sounded almost like warmth. Understood, Captain. In that case, we will provide the shields. Nothing will harm you while you are under our protection. Help is coming. The 17 warships of the United Earth Navy spread outward in a precise formation, surrounding the tiny Mirati vessel in a sphere of metal and firepower. Weapons platforms rotated to face outward. Sensor arrays swept the surrounding space for any sign of threat. The dreadnought at the center of the formation moved closer until it loomed over the quiet dawn like a guardian watching over a sleeping child. Soral watched the display and felt something she did not expect. The fear was still there, buried deep in her chest, but something else was growing alongside it. Something that felt almost like hope. She did not understand why 17 warships had answered a simple distress call from an unknown species. She did not understand why these humans, these allegedly dangerous and violent humans, were treating her crew with such careful concern. She did not understand any of it, but she was beginning to think that perhaps the rumors about humanity had missed something important. Perhaps the galaxy did not know humans as well as it thought, that a shuttle detached from the dreadnought and began moving toward the quiet dawn. Soral straightened her uniform, took a deep breath, and prepared to meet the species that had just deployed a war fleet to rescue 6 scientists they had never seen before. Whatever happened next, she knew one thing with absolute certainty. The universe had just become a much more interesting place. The airlock hissed open, and Admiral Priya Sharma stepped onto the quiet dawn with the calm confidence of someone who had boarded 1,000 vessels in her career. Behind her came 4 humans carrying cases of equipment, their movements efficient and purposeful. They wore dark uniforms marked with symbols that Soral did not recognize, but their weapons remained holstered and their hands were empty. Sharma was smaller than Soral had expected. The Mirati captain had imagined humans as towering figures of muscle and aggression. But this woman was compact, lean, and carried herself with a quiet authority that needed no physical intimidation to support it. Her dark hair was pulled back in a severe knot, and her brown eyes swept the interior of the quiet dawn with quick intelligence. Captain Soral, I am Admiral Priya Sharma of the United Earth Navy Dreadnought Relentless Mercy. My engineering team is ready to assess your damage, and my medical staff is prepared to assist your crew. How can we help? Soral found herself momentarily speechless. The question was so simple, so direct, so completely at odds with everything she had expected from this encounter. She had prepared herself for demands, threats, negotiations. She had not prepared herself for genuine concern. Admiral, I must ask, why are you here? Why did you respond to our signal with such overwhelming force? Sharma tilted her head slightly, as if the question surprised her. You sent a distress call. We were in the area. We came. Soral gestured toward the viewport, where the silhouettes of warships blocked out the distant stars. 17 warships. 17. For a single research vessel that poses no threat to anyone. This is not a rescue team. This is a battle fleet. Sharma's expression softened slightly. She glanced at her team, then back at Soral. When a human ship receives a distress signal, we respond with everything we have available. We never know what caused the emergency. It could be engine failure, as in your case. It could be a natural disaster. It could be hostile forces attacking the vessel. She paused. We prepare for the worst possibility because we would rather arrive with too much help than too little. But the cost, Soral pressed. The fuel, the resources, the disruption to your other operations. Surely this cannot be standard procedure for every distress call you receive. Sharma smiled, and the expression transformed her face into something almost warm. Captain, let me explain something about humanity. Our history is filled with moments where help arrived too late, where someone in trouble was left alone because no one thought they were worth the effort. We learned from those moments. We decided that no call for help would go unanswered if we had the power to respond. She stepped closer, her voice dropping slightly. Right now, you are vulnerable. You are alone, far from home, unable to defend yourselves. In human culture, that is exactly when you need the most protection, not the least. Soral felt her throat tighten. She had studied many species during her career. She had learned their customs, their values, their ways of thinking. But nothing had prepared her for this. Nothing had prepared her for a species that deployed its deadliest weapons not to threaten the weak, but to shield them. The engineering team was already moving through the ship, scanning systems and conferring with each other in rapid bursts of technical language. One of them, a tall man with dark skin and a brilliant smile, approached Tevin at the communications console and began asking questions about the engine configuration. Lieutenant Commander Daniel Okonkwo, he said by way of introduction. Mind if I take a look at your primary power coupling? I think I see the problem, but I want to confirm before we start pulling things apart. Tevin looked at Soral for guidance. She nodded. The next several hours passed in a blur of activity. Human engineers crawled through access panels and maintenance shafts that had never been designed for beings of their size. They cursed at stubborn bolts, laughed at each other's mistakes, and shared food with any Mirati crew member who showed interest. The atmosphere aboard the Quiet Dawn shifted from terrified silence to something that almost resembled a social gathering. Okonkwo found Soral reviewing damage reports and sat down beside her without asking permission. His manner was casual, friendly, completely inappropriate for a meeting between military personnel and foreign civilians. Soral found that she did not mind. Your research data is fascinating, he said. Cancer treatments based on stellar radiation patterns. I had no idea that was even possible that we believe the dying star in this system produces specific frequencies that may prove effective against several types of malignant cells, Soral explained. If we can complete our analysis, the results could benefit species across the entire galaxy. Okonkwo nodded slowly, his expression thoughtful. That I need to tell the Admiral about this. He stood and walked away before Soral could ask why. 20 minutes later, she saw additional shuttles departing from other ships in the fleet. More engineers, more equipment, more resources being devoted to repairing a single alien vessel that most species would have ignored entirely. Admiral Sharma appeared at her side, datapad in hand. Captain, I have spoken with my chief medical officer. She wants to share our entire oncology database with your research team. We have been fighting cancer for centuries. Perhaps our data could help your work. Soral stared at her. What do you want in return? Sharma looked genuinely puzzled. Return? Nothing. You're trying to help people. We want to help you help them. She smiled again. That is how this works, Captain. That is how humanity works. Soral did not know how to respond. So she simply nodded and tried to remember how to breathe normally again. Tevin had never seen anyone work as quickly as the human engineers. They moved through the damaged sections of the Quiet Dawn like a force of nature, tearing out broken components and replacing them with parts fabricated aboard their own vessels. They argued constantly, shouted across corridors, and seemed to communicate as much through hand gestures and crude jokes as through actual words. But they also worked together with a coordination that bordered on telepathic. When one engineer needed a tool, another handed it to them before the request was even spoken. When a problem arose that seemed impossible to solve, they gathered in tight clusters and threw ideas at each other until something stuck. They made mistakes, corrected them immediately, and moved on without dwelling on failure. Okonkwo had taken personal charge of the primary engine repair. He spent 6 hours wedged into a maintenance shaft that was clearly too small for his body, emerging periodically covered in coolant and grinning like a child who had discovered a new toy. Your engine design is beautiful, he told Soral during one of these breaks. Elegant, efficient. The engineers who built this knew exactly what they were doing. He wiped his face with a cloth that only spread the coolant further. The problem is that elegance made it fragile. One component fails, and the whole system collapses. We're going to fix that. How? Okonkwo's grin widened. We're going to make it ugly. Redundant power couplings, backup processors, emergency cutoffs. When we are finished, you could lose half your engine and still limp home. Soral watched him disappear back into the maintenance shaft and wondered how many other species would have bothered. The Mirati vessel was small, insignificant, carrying nothing of material value. Most powers in the galaxy would have ignored their distress call entirely or answered it only to demand payment for services rendered. The humans asked for nothing. They gave freely, worked tirelessly, and treated the Mirati crew as if they were honored guests rather than strangers encountered by chance. The doctor, Amara Reyes, the fleet's chief medical officer, had set up a small station in the Quiet Dawn's laboratory. She was a compact woman with silver-streaked hair and hands that moved with surgical precision. When Soral entered, she found Reyes deep in conversation with Mirati scientist Olin. The two of them hunched over a display showing complex molecular structures. "This is remarkable," Reyes was saying. "Your approach to radiation therapy is completely different from ours, but I can see how it would work. The specificity is incredible." Olin made a sound of pleased surprise. "You understand the methodology? I spent 30 years studying oncology before I joined the Navy." Reyes smiled. "Cancer has been humanity's enemy for as long as we have existed. We have been fighting it with everything we have." She transferred a massive file to the Mirati system. Medical databases, research papers, clinical trial results, all freely shared without restriction or condition. Olin stared at the data as if it were a religious vision. "This is centuries of work," he whispered. "Your entire species accumulated knowledge on this one disease." Reyes nodded. "Use it. Build on it. Find cures we cannot. That is why we share." Soral stepped forward. "Dr. Reyes, I must ask again. What do humans gain from this generosity? What is your motive?" Reyes turned to face her, and her expression was calm and open. "Captain, let me tell you a story. When I was a child, my mother died of a disease that we did not know how to cure. I watched her suffer. I watched her fade. And I swore that I would spend my life fighting that same enemy, so that other children would not have to experience what I experienced." She paused. "That is why I became a doctor. That is why I joined the fleet. And that is why I share everything I know with anyone who might use it to save lives. But we are strangers." Reyes smiled gently. "Disease does not care about borders or species or politics. It attacks everyone equally. Why should the cure be any different?" She returned to her work, leaving Soral standing in silence. The repairs continued through the night cycle. Human engineers rotated in shifts, sleeping briefly aboard their shuttles before returning to work. They shared meals with the Mirati crew, teaching them human songs and learning Mirati melodies in return. The fear that had gripped the quiet dawn had evaporated entirely, replaced by something that felt almost like friendship. Okonkwo emerged from the engine compartment near the end of his third shift, exhausted but triumphant. "Done," he announced. "Primary engines are back online. Backup systems installed. Emergency protocols programmed." He collapsed into a chair and accepted a cup of Mirati tea with grateful hands. "You should be able to reach any port in the sector without trouble." Soral looked at the damage reports, now marked with completion indicators. "You have been working for 18 hours, Okonkwo shrugged. "You needed help.it was such a simple answer. Such a human answer. No calculation of benefit, no expectation of reward, no political consideration. Someone needed help, so help was given. The equation was complete." Admiral Sharma's voice crackled over the communication system. "Captain Soral, please report to the bridge immediately. We have detected incoming vessels." The warmth in Soral's chest turned cold. She looked at Okonkwo, who was already rising to his feet, all traces of exhaustion vanishing from his face. "Let's go," he said, and his voice carried something that sounded like anticipation. 3 contacts appeared on the long-range sensors, moving fast and hard toward the fleet's position. Their configuration was immediately recognizable to Admiral Sharma, who studied the display with cold eyes. "Drell Consortium," she said quietly. "Slavers." Soral felt her blood turn to ice. The Drell were known throughout the galaxy as predators who specialized in capturing vulnerable species and selling them to the highest bidder. They targeted isolated vessels, scientific expeditions, refugee convoys. They had no honor, no mercy, and no fear of consequences. Until now, perhaps. Sharma turned to her tactical officer, a young man with steady hands and a face that showed no emotion. "Move the quiet dawn to the center of our formation. All ships to defensive positions. Weapons hot, but do not fire unless I give the order." The fleet responded instantly. 17 warships shifted in perfect unison, closing ranks around the tiny Mirati vessel like a fist closing around a precious gem. Soral watched the display and felt herself being swallowed by the protective embrace of humanity's military power. "Admiral," she said hesitantly, "perhaps we should run. We do not want to cause a conflict between your people and the Drell. Sharma looked at her with an expression that was almost amused. Captain, you are under our protection. Running would send the wrong message. What message do you want to send? Sharma smiled, and it was not a warm smile. That attacking those we protect is a very poor decision. She opened a communication channel to the approaching vessels. Her voice was calm, professional, and carried the weight of absolute certainty. This is Admiral Priya Sharma of the United Earth Navy. The vessel at the center of our formation is under our protection. You will alter course and leave this area immediately. This is your only warning. The response came quickly, transmitted in the harsh, clicking language of the Drell. The translator rendered it into something approximating comprehension. Human commander. We have claim rights to that vessel. It's in a distress signal in unclaimed space. Under salvage law, its cargo and crew belong to whoever responds first. Sharma's expression did not change that we responded first. The vessel and its crew are under our protection. There is nothing here for you. The Drell commander made a sound that might have been laughter. Protection? You humans are far from your territory. These waters are ours by tradition. You have no authority here. Stand aside, and we will take only what we came for. Soral watched Sharma's face carefully. She expected anger, aggression, the explosive violence that humans were supposedly famous for. Instead, she saw something far more unsettling. Patience. Sharma leaned forward slightly. Let me be clear. The Mirati vessel is under our protection. Its crew are our guests. If you approach within weapons range, we will interpret that as an act of aggression and respond accordingly. This is not a negotiation. You threaten us? The Drell commander's voice dripped with contempt. We are the Drell Consortium. We have taken thousands of vessels. We have crushed species that try to resist us. You're 17 ships in empty space, far from reinforcement. Sharma nodded slowly. You are correct. We are 17 ships. Allow me to demonstrate what that means. She gestured to her tactical officer. All ships. Full combat readiness. Now, what happened next would stay with Soral for the rest of her life. 17 warships activated their weapons systems simultaneously. Targeting arrays locked onto the Drell vessels. Energy capacitors charged to maximum. Missile bays opened. Point defense systems came online. The electromagnetic signature of the fleet's combined firepower was so intense that it overloaded the Quiet Dawn sensors and forced an automatic shutdown. When the sensors rebooted 30 seconds later, Soral saw the display and understood why the galaxy whispered about human military power. Each of the 17 ships could have destroyed the 3 Drell vessels single-handedly. Together, they represented enough firepower to crack a small moon. The formation was designed not just to protect the Mirati vessel, but to ensure that any attack would be met with overwhelming, instantaneous, devastating response. The Drell commander's voice returned to the communication channel. The contempt was gone. In its place was something that sounded very much like fear. This is excessive. This is unreasonable. We only want one small vessel. Sharma's reply was ice, and we want you to leave. One of us will get what we want. You have 60 seconds to decide which one. Silence stretched across the void. Soral could hear her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. The Drell were violent, ruthless, and proud. They did not back down. They did not flee. At least, they never had before. 50 seconds passed. 50-5. At 58 seconds. The 3 Drell vessels turned and accelerated away at maximum speed. They did not transmit another word. They simply ran. Sharma watched them go, then turned to Soral with an expression of quiet satisfaction. That, she said, is the message. Soral found that she could not speak. She simply stared at the retreating Drell signatures and tried to process what she had just witnessed. Humans had not fired a single shot. They had not made a single aggressive move. They had simply shown their teeth and waited. And the most feared slavers in the sector had fled like frightened prey. Admiral, Soral finally managed. Why did you not destroy them? Sharma's smile returned, warmer this time. Because dead enemies tell no stories. Those slavers will spread word of what happened here to every port they visit. They will tell everyone that humanity protects those who call for help. She paused. Fear travels faster than light, Captain. Today, we launched it toward every slaver in the galaxy. The Drell's signatures vanished from the sensor display, swallowed by the vastness of space as they fled toward whatever dark corner of the galaxy they called home. Soral stared at the empty screen and felt something shifting inside her chest. It was the sensation of understanding arriving all at once, like a door opening to reveal a room that had always existed but had never been seen. She turned to Admiral Sharma, who was already issuing orders to stand down from combat readiness. The human commander's face showed no triumph, no excitement, no satisfaction at having driven away a superior enemy through sheer intimidation. She simply looked tired. "Admiral," Soral said quietly, "may I ask you something?" Of course, the Drell commander called this excessive. Unreasonable. He was not wrong. 17 warships to answer a single distress call. An entire battle fleet deployed to protect 6 scientists who have nothing to offer you. Why? Sharma considered the question for a long moment before responding. "Captain, do you know how humanity learned to travel between stars?" Soral shook her head. "We almost destroyed ourselves first. Many times. We fought wars over resources, over ideology, over fear and pride, and simple hatred. We built weapons capable of ending our entire species and came within moments of using them." Sharma's voice was soft, almost gentle. "And then we looked up at the stars and realized that we were not alone in the universe. That changed everything." "How?" "We understood that we could be better, that we had to be better. Not because someone forced us to change, but because we chose to." She paused. "Every distress call we answer, every life we protect, every time we deploy our weapons in defense of the innocent instead of conquest of the weak, we prove to ourselves that the choice was worth making." Soral thought about this for a long time. "But surely there are those among your people who disagree, who believe that strength should be used for dominance, not protection." Sharma smiled slightly. "Of course there are. Humanity is not perfect. We still struggle with our worst instincts every day. But we build our military on a simple principle. Power without purpose is tyranny, but power in service of others is honor. Every officer in the United Earth Navy took an oath to protect life, not just human life. All life." She gestured toward the viewport, where the fleet maintained its protective formation. "Those ships out there carry enough firepower to conquer a dozen worlds. Instead, they spend their days answering distress calls and escorting refugees and standing between the weak and those who would prey upon them." "And the Drell?" Soral asked. "What will happen when they tell others what they witnessed here?" Sharma's smile widened. "That is the point, Captain. The Drell will return to their ports and their black markets and their networks of crime and exploitation. They will tell everyone who will listen about the day they encountered a human fleet protecting a single alien research vessel. They will describe the weapons they faced, the formations they witnessed, the absolute certainty in my voice when I told them believe. You want them to spread fear, that I want them to spread knowledge. There is a difference." She turned to face Soral directly. "Fear can be overcome. It can be challenged, resisted, proven false. But knowledge is permanent. The slavers now know that humanity answers distress calls. They know that we protect those who ask for help. They know that we do not negotiate, do not back down, do not abandon those in our care. And what will they do with this knowledge?" Sharma shrugged. "Some will avoid us. Some will test us. A few will try to prove that we are weaker than we appear." She paused. "Those few will learn the same lesson that the Drell learned today, and they will spread the knowledge further." Soral felt a strange sensation building in her chest. It took her a moment to recognize it as hope. "You were trying to change the galaxy," she said quietly. "Not through conquest, but through example that we are trying," Sharma agreed. "Is slow work. The galaxy is vast and old and set in its ways. There are powers that have ruled through violence for millions of years. They will not change overnight. But you believe it is possible." Sharma looked at her, and her eyes held something that Soral had not expected to see in a military commander. "Faith, Captain, I have seen the worst that intelligent beings can do to each other. I have witnessed cruelty that defies description. I have buried friends who died fighting against evil that seemed unstoppable. She paused. And I have also seen the best. I have seen strangers risk their lives for each other. I have seen enemies become allies. I have seen species that hated each other for generations learn to work together. She smiled. The galaxy can change. It will change. Perhaps not in my lifetime, but eventually. And until then, we answer every distress call. We protect every life we can reach. We deploy our deadliest weapons in defense of the helpless and hope that someday the weapons will no longer be necessary. Sorrel nodded slowly. Admiral, she said, I think I'm beginning to understand your species. Sharma laughed, and the sound was warm and genuine. Captain, I have been studying humanity my entire life, and I'm still surprised by us every day. But I appreciate the effort. The communication officer interrupted with a respectful cough. Admiral, repairs on the Quiet Dawn are nearly complete. Chief Engineer Okonkwo reports that final systems checks will be finished within the hour. Sharma nodded. Excellent. Captain Sorrel, would you care to join me for a meal while we wait? I believe we have much to discuss. Sorrel smiled for the first time since her engines had failed. I would like that very much, Admiral. The Quiet Dawn floated in space, transformed. What had been a crippled vessel waiting for death was now a ship reborn. Its engines humming with power and its systems upgraded beyond anything its original builders could have imagined. Human engineering teams had installed redundant power systems, emergency beacons, backup navigation computers, and 3 months' worth of supplies. Sorrel walked the corridors of her vessel and felt as if she were aboard a different ship entirely. The walls were the same, the layout unchanged, but everything else was new. Better, stronger. She found Admiral Sharma waiting in the central chamber, a small device in her hand. The human commander smiled when Sorrel approached. Captain, before you depart, I want to give you something. She pressed the device into Sorrel's palm. It was smooth, compact, and surprisingly warm to the touch. This is a direct communication link to United Earth Navy Command, Sharma explained. If you or any Mirati vessel ever needs assistance, anywhere in the galaxy, activate this device. We will come. Sorrel stared at the object in her hand. Admiral, I cannot accept this. The resources required to monitor such a device across galactic distances must be enormous. Sharma shrugged. We have already established the network. Your device simply joins thousands of others that we have distributed to friendly species throughout known space. She smiled. Consider it an invitation to friendship. Sorrel closed her fingers around the communicator. I do not understand, she said quietly. I have spent my entire life studying the galaxy and its peoples. I thought I understood how civilizations interact. The strong take from the weak. The powerful exploit the vulnerable. That is the natural order. Sharma shook her head. That is one order. It is not the only one. Then what is your order? What principle guides humanity? Sharma thought for a moment before answering. Have you ever heard the concept of paying forward? Sorrel indicated that she had not. It is a human tradition, Sharma explained. When someone helps you, instead of repaying them directly, you help someone else. The kindness spreads outward, touching lives that the original helper will never know. She paused. Humanity was helped once. When we were young and struggling and alone, other species reached out to us. They shared knowledge, technology, guidance. They did not ask for payment. They simply believed that we were worth helping. And now you do the same for others. Now we do the same for others. Sharma smiled. Someday, perhaps, the Mirati will encounter a species that needs help. A young civilization struggling to find its way. When that day comes, remember what happened here. Remember that strength can be used to protect as well as destroy. Remember that power is only as good as the purpose it serves. Sorrel felt tears forming in her large amber eyes. She did not try to hide them. Admiral, I have studied many species. I have learned their customs, their values, their ways of thinking. But I have never encountered a people quite like yours. Sharma laughed softly. We are still figuring ourselves out, Captain. Humanity is a work in progress. But we are trying to become something worthy of the stars. She extended her hand, and Soral took it after a moment of hesitation. The human gesture of friendship felt natural somehow, as if it had always been part of Mirati custom. Safe travels, Captain Soral. May your research bring healing to countless worlds. Thank you, Admiral, for everything. Soral gathered her crew and returned to the bridge of the Quiet Dawn. Through the viewport, she could see the human fleet maintaining its protective formation, ready to escort them to the edge of safe space before continuing on its own mission. Tevin looked up from his console. Captain, all systems are nominal. We are ready to depart. Soral nodded, but she did not immediately give the order. Instead, she stood at the viewport and watched the human ships floating in the void. Olin approached her quietly. Captain, what are you thinking? Soral did not answer for a long moment. I am thinking about the future, she finally said. I am thinking about what happens when word of this encounter spreads across the galaxy. When other species learn that humanity deploys its deadliest armada to rescue strangers and asks nothing in return. What do you think will happen? Soral smiled. I think everything will change. She turned to face her crew. All 5 of them gathered on the bridge of their small research vessel. We came here to study a dying star, she said. We hope to find knowledge that might save lives. Instead, we found something far more valuable. We found proof that the galaxy does not have to remain as it has always been. That kindness can be more powerful than cruelty. That protection can be more meaningful than conquest. She looked at the communicator in her hand, then placed it carefully in her pocket. That we are scientists. We observe, we analyze, we record. Today we have witnessed something that the galaxy needs to know. Humanity is not what the rumors claim. They are not simply dangerous or violent or aggressive. They are protectors, guardians. They answer calls for help with overwhelming force because they believe that no one should face danger alone. She turned back to the viewport. Helm, set course for home. We have a story to tell. The Quiet Dawn's engines came to life, smooth and powerful thanks to human engineering. The vessel began to move, escorted by 17 warships that would see it safely on its way. And somewhere in the vast emptiness of space, a small electronic heartbeat continued to pulse outward. A beacon, a promise, a reminder that whoever called for help would not call alone. Humanity had answered once. They would answer again. That was the message that would spread across the stars. That was the truth that would change everything.